What is up, guys and girls? Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well. I hope you're all having fun, and I hope you're all getting out on the water as much as possible. We're coming back at you today from Reckless Riders, Rhodes, Greece, our favorite spot on the planet. And we are at the end of the season now, so I have some extra time to talk about boards. How do you choose the right board? What board is good for you? Now, this is a long-lasting question that a lot of people ask, a lot of my customers ask, and a lot of the customers that I surprise by giving them smaller or bigger boards than what they use at home because they've only used one board, and they love it and they say, wow, I didn't think that could be possible. Now, what are the reasons for that? First of all, how do most people look at boards? Most people look at boards by volume, so the liters of the board. So this is an 80 liter board, so the volume of this is 80. If for those who don't know, liters or volume means the weight in kilograms that it can hold on the board without completely sinking under the water. And that's a very simplistic way of saying it, but that's basically the way you should be thinking about it, right? So 80 liters is what it lifts. 80 kilograms is what this board would lift without completely going under the water. Now, there is going to be a little bit of sinkage, but nothing too crazy. And the problem is, especially for windsurfers, so people coming from windsurfing, is that we're used to using only volume. So we're saying, I want a 90 liter board, I want a 100 liter board, I'm used to using a 120 liter board, or whatever. Now, volume is important and it does make a big difference. However, it is not the only thing that makes a difference. I actually think there's some other things that are equally as important. The main one being the length of a board, right? So besides volume, anyway, before we get into that, besides volume, we're going to look at three things: the length of a board, the width of a board, and the little details of a board, like the rocker, the concave, and the tail shape. Now, like I said, windsurfers especially, they usually look at only the volume, and that's because we've been, it's the easiest way to kind of find what board you want. So you say, I will use a 90 liter board, I use a 100 liter board, I use a blah blah blah, etc, etc, etc. Now, the reason for that is that, of course, don't forget, windsurfing has been out for 40 years, so the board shapes are pretty much set in stone. Kind of, there's small differences, but nothing too crazy. So it's easy to just say that's the volume, and you kind of know what to expect. However, in wingfoiling, the sport is still progressing, it's still changing a lot. A lot of companies have different shapes, and not only for those reasons, but for other reasons that I will not get into, there's more things that make a big difference, like the three I mentioned earlier, especially number one, the length. That's why you'll see a lot of companies name the boards after the length that they have. Of course, it goes in feet, like we do in surfing. So you'll be a 5 foot, 5'2", 5'4", and so on and so on and so on, or smaller, of course. So this is an 80 liter board. That's the Vayu Fly. We're not talking specifically about Vayu boards. This is general information about anything, but this will serve as a good example because they're a very nice board, and we've got some of the older models that work very differently. So a Vayu Fly 80 liter board, 5'0" in length. What does this mean? Now, the length of a board, the difference it makes, it will make the board, so a longer board is faster on the water, right? So a longer board will accelerate better on the water, giving you more speed. Speed is what really helps you get up on a foil, essentially. So the more speed you have on the water, the easier you'll get up flying on that foil. It really also helps, extra length will help in sinker boards. So if you're getting to the level where you want to use sinker boards or you want to try them out, don't go on your first board to a very short sinker board, although you'll find that most sinker boards are quite longish. And that's because a longer board will help you get to the surface of the water easier and then accelerate easier and get going. So you're not going to make your life much easier with a longer board. However, what are the negatives of length? Well, too much length, so not, if you're like 5'0" like this one, that's not very long. So too much length will cause you to have swing weight on the board, right? That's what we call swing weight, is when the board is too long. So the pivot point, which is the foil on the back, it gets affected by the weight of the nose of the board being so far away, especially on turns and carves and stuff like that. So you don't want a board that's too long because it feels like the board itself is affecting the foil rather than just all the control coming from you, which is something you do not want. So besides the swing weight, because of length, everything else is faster, easier, basically it's all positive except of swing weight. So you're looking to find that good balance between what is long enough for the volume I have, but not too long. Right? And this comes with testing and experience, but I will give you some of my own advice later on at the end of the video. Now, the next thing we can look at is the width of a board. So the width of a board, how wide it is, will make the board feel more stable. So a wider board is more stable, as long as you're not taking that width away from the length again, right? You do also need some length for stability, but a wider board is stable, is more comfortable with where you position your feet. You don't have to worry too much. It forgives a lot if you make a mistake. So on a very, very narrow board, you'd move your foot from here to like here, so like half a step back, and it's going to punish you for that, right? You're going to feel that the board is reacting to that movement, whereas on a wider board, you can have a bit more of a loose kind of foot positioning, and it will not punish you too much. However, a wider board, although more stable and more comfortable to get on and to stand on, usually is slower. So it'll slow the board down more, give you more drag. So again, slower is not good for getting on foil. So you want speed which comes from length, not from width. That's why you'll see a lot of the racers out there. If you really look at their boards, although they're small boards, so it's hard to see the difference. So they're all like on 60 liters and under. But if you see the shapes of the board, they're pretty narrow, nothing crazy, and they're quite longish for their size, for their volume, right? And that gives you an idea of why they want that, because they want to get out of the water fast, they want to get flying fast, and they want to going fast the whole time. And that's what a board like this ideally gives you. So yeah, width is comfort but slows you down. Length gives you speed, but also gives you swing weight if you go too long. Now, all the little details of a board you can look at. I would say the rocker of a board, so that's the shape of the board, especially the underneath shape. The concave of a board, that's the kind of inlaying kind of shapes they put on the base of the board, on the bottom of the board, to help out with a variety of things really. And the tail shape of a board. So let's start with the concave, so let's start with the rocker, because that's quite important. Now, what is rocker? Rocker comes originally from surfboards, wind surfboards that go for waves. So rocker helps, like if you hit down on waves, coming back up, not getting the nose stuck in waves. It also helps kind of lock in the wave a little bit on getting the board to carve better, stuff like this. So it's things primarily for waves, really not important at all, not necessary for wingfoil boards, because wingfoil boards, our primary goal is to pick up speed, get flying, and once you're flying, you're off the water anyway, so you don't really care about these things. So rocker is really unnecessary on a wingfoil board. What it does, the rocker, it reduces the area of a board that really touches the water, so it's going to slow you down quite a bit. So rocker really unnecessary on a wingfoil board. I don't see a reason for having it. It would work on even wingfoil boards for waves, but again, not necessary. It's not something that you really need, and it's going to only give you negatives like slowing you down, getting the board stuck on the water, not letting it come up off the water. Another thing to check out about wingfoil boards, we said, besides the rocker, is the concave of the board. So as we said here, the rocker is this shape, so it's the banana shape a board takes. Now this board, as you'll see, is pretty much flat. From here all the way to here is flat, and then it goes up a little bit, and that up, you do need that slight point there just to get the board off the waves, make sure your nose doesn't get caught in the waves all the time when you're riding. Now what is concave? Concave is this shape here, and it's very discreet on this board, so you won't see it anyway, even if I bring it close up. But the concave is this shape that it does like that, so little channels in the board. Now it can be a single concave, it can be a double concave, it can be a V board, it can be the opposite of a concave, so it can be pointing out. And there's a lot of different things all these things do, but for a wingfoil board specifically, you'll see that nearly everybody uses a double concave, and now it's gone very slight. So there's a very slight double concave on the front of the board. This is because a concave on the concave on the board does help acceleration and lift, but it doesn't need to be so pronounced, because really what you really need is the speed which comes from the flatness of the board. So most wingfoil boards now have a very slight concave on the front of the board, because it help lead the water in, help it kind of disperse the water through the board and give you that extra speed, help you accelerate the board. So they do have a concave, but you're looking for very slight. If you're not experienced in checking out boards, you should hardly be able to see anything there. Now, a big difference before we go to tail shape, I'll show you. This here is an old model, Vayu Fly R, and this is a Vayu Fly, so there is a bit difference in the model, but anyway, Vayu Fly R, 85 liters, 80 liters. Now this board here, the new one, is gonna be flying so easily. Like, it just takes off like nothing. You get on the board, if you're on the surface, if you're not sinking it, you go 1, 2, 3, you're off, you're flying. This board will make your life harder. It will not fly so easily. What are the main differences? Well, if you check the board on top of the other one here, you can see that although it's about the same width and about the same length, this top one is shorter. Again, shorter means less speed, harder to get on, but the big difference is on the bottom. So you can see from the side that you can see massive concave, so it basically has a concave, sorry, not concave, massive rocker, so it has a rocker all the way to here, and then it flattens out. So that means only this part of the board, the back part, or let's say half the board, is actually touching the water and helping accelerate. The rest is basically useless on that point there. And as you see, the concave, don't know if you can see that in the camera, but it is very pronounced. It is really obvious concave. So we have a concave from here to here, and it's going deep in, deep out. Now, although that helps kind of channel the water and everything, like we said, it be too much concave, too much shaping, too much effect slows down everything that has to do with the board, and that's what only thing we really want with a Wingfoil board in the beginning is speed and acceleration, and that'll get us flying. Now, the last thing we're going to look at from all the details is the tail shape. Now, the tail shape, I'll keep it simple because there's a lot of tail shapes you can have, but the tail shape, you want a flat tail. That means a tail that is wide, flat and chubby here. So you see it's a thick tail, it's really, the rail is really kind of sharp off the rail, and it's wide, so all this is the tail. There's no pointing or anything like that, and it is fat, chubby, like that. What that helps with is it provides stability and control. A tail like that provides stability and control, really like stabilize your board. It'll help you accelerate the board, and it helps with how the board feels when floating, so when you're on the board. So it helps you stabilize on the floating, it helps you speed up, have control over the board, and it helps pop off the water very easily. Any other kind of tail, if they put all these weird shapes where they cut it out, all the concaves in, all the shapes, channels through the tail, in my opinion, is unnecessary. You want simplicity, so you just want a flat, wide tail. That's it. That's going to be the best option for wingfoiling to get you flying as soon as possible. So, in short, what I would say is you're looking for a board that is around, for your level, we can still follow that chart we said before. So 40 liters over when you're a beginner, you can slowly come down from there if you have the opportunity to do that. If you get to the intermediate level and you're riding all the time and you're getting flying and you're happy, you can go down to a board the same volume as your weight, and then you can go under that when you're advanced. But really, when you're advanced, if you take all these little things into consideration, you find the right balance for you and the best for these main things, like I said, which is stability and acceleration, you can use much less than 15 liters under your weight. For example, I'm 100 kilos. The 80 or 90 liter, I use them as light wind boards because as long as I have a little bit of power in, they'll stay at the surface. And like I said, this shape is really easy flying. So this 80 is a 5.0, and in my opinion, anything around the 5.0 range works very nicely. So if we use this as a main board, 80 liters 5.0, if I go to my 90, it's a 5.2, 110 goes to 5.4, and after 5.4 I think it's getting a bit, that's where it starts feeling a bit too much. So anything around there is good for that intermediate level or light wind level. Now when you're going to beginner boards, don't be afraid, just make them big. But then when I go to my normal board, so my most normal boards are 60 and 70 liters. This is my 70 liter. I use this in even quite light wind as long as it's stable, and this is a 410 70 liter. And again, 410, still super easy to start. It'll get you flying and get out of the water when I sink it quite easily. If you go down to the size of like 4.5, 4.4, like this one or under, that's a 40 liter, however, that's why it's so small. It will really slow down your acceleration and make it harder to get out of the water if you're someone heavy like me. So that's why usually a 70 or 60 liter is more than enough for me, and the Vayu shapes, they keep that perfect length in my opinion. So if you're looking at something like I do, I would say around the 5.0. You don't want to go too big, you don't want to go too small. Of course, this all depends on a lot of other factors. So the main things I would say, the conclusion here would be find a board that is around 5.0. Weight according to the graph we said before, so around your weight if you're intermediate. You can go smaller or bigger depending on your level, but find a board that is flat, simple, really simple, flat, not too much concave, hardly any concave at all, no rocker. You do not need rocker, just the nose enough to come up. So most of the board, so you see this one's from here to here, is basically flat. That's going to accelerate you. It's a flat bottom. There's nothing on the bottom of this board. There's no concave or anything. There's slight concave here, that's it, and a nice flat wide tail, and these will get you flying much sooner than anything else, which is ideally what you want. Once you're up on the foil, then everything is about your foil, and as long as your board is not too long, you have no effect from this board. So I hope that helps you out. I hope that's clear. There is a lot of information to give on boards if you really go in depth to it, but I tried to keep it simple, and I tried to say only what is really necessary for you guys. Of course, the more you experience on wind sports and the more you get into it, the more you look at boards, you'll kind of understand all the little details and tips and tricks and what you like on a board. So just leave that for the future if you're not there yet. For now, remember what I said. So if you like the video, please drop a like, comment underneath with any questions you have. I'll try to answer them as clearly and as simply as I can, about boards, about anything you want to answer, about suggestions about future videos, or just to say hello. And of course, if you did like the video, please subscribe to the channel if you already haven't, and I will see you on the water.